One stormy night, a cold wind blows from the sea and the waves crash violently against the rocky shore. Bechiu Island is a small, almost forgotten spot in the waters of Southeast Asia. That night was stranger than ever. The full moon was in the sky, but it was hidden behind dark clouds, and its pale light occasionally shone on the surface of the sea. A local fisherman named Choi was returning from the sea that night. His wooden boat was struggling with the waves when he heard a strange sound. A chain-like sound, as if something heavy and metallic was being dragged across the water. At first, he thought the wind was playing with the chain of his boat. When he turned back, he saw something slowly passing by the boat, a large wooden box. When he looked more closely, he realized it was a coffin. What's even stranger is that the coffin wasn't completely closed. It was half open and a wet, bloody white cloth was sticking out from the door. The next morning, the entire island was filled with Chok's words. Some thought he was Toxidor. Some thought he was tired, hallucinating. Some people are afraid to tell the tale. There's an old legend on the island that passed down from generation to generation about the dead being buried in strange floating coffins in the middle of the sea. Coffins in the middle of the sea. According to the story of the island's elders, about 100 years ago, a small, isolated tribe lived on this island. Instead of burying or burning the dead, they placed their bodies in special wooden coffins. They would attach chains to them and then send them into the middle of the sea so that, as they said, the dead soul could reach equilibrium. But one day a coffin returns from the sea. Since that night, it has been said that whenever one of those coffins returns to land, the island will be plagued by Nephilim. Boats sink. The island will be plagued by Nephilim. Boats sink. People disappear. In the sadness. A young girl named Mihua went for a walk by the cliffs and never returned. Only his bag and a pair of simple plastic flip-flops were found on the wet sand the next morning. A trail of dried blood had been drawn on the sand on the next morning. That same night, another fisherman swore that he saw a large black object floating in the water from a distance. He picked up his binoculars to look, and he could only see for a moment that the object was going under the water. And then the sound of the chain came again. They're holding an emergency meeting on the island. They say we need to check and take care of the beach. People should not be afraid. Although the locals tried to pretend that things were normal, the reality was that the island was crumbling from within. Fear settled in the houses, shops, and even people's smiles until something even stranger was discovered. One morning, the sea was completely calm and still. It was as if he knew he was about to reveal a big secret. A young fisherman, searching for his fishing nets, saw a large object approaching in the distance on a small wave. When he got closer, he realized it was a coffin again. The same wood, the same rusty iron lock, and the same chain around it. But when local forces opened the coffin, this time there was nothing inside. No body inside. No body, no cloth. Nothing, just a bucket of water and a handful of salt. All eyes turned back to the legends. Those who said that some coffins are made for carrying, not for burial. And now everyone was asking when the next coffin was going to arrive, and who it was looking for this time. One night after the second coffin is found, a middle-aged woman named Mrs. Sue, who lived alone in a wooden house by the sea, goes to the police station. His complexion was pale. His voice was trembling, they said. Last night, around 3 a.m., he heard a soft knock. At first, he thought it was the wind rattling the windows, but when he got up and looked, he saw something that still made his voice tremble as he described it. A tall man in dark clothes was standing behind the window. His skin was wet, not from rain, but from the drops of water that were falling from the sea on his face. He was staring at the house. My third wife had gone to pick up the phone, but when she returned, the man was gone. Only footprints could be seen from the windowsill, which had reached the sand next to the house. This image was repeated from that night. Different houses, steamed windows, the sound of chains, and a wet look. It was as if something was following you, and the coffins made everything even scarier. An old monk who had lived for years in a small hermitage on top of a hill finally started to speak. He said he knew something he shouldn't have kept quiet about. He said he was one of the last coffin makers, the same ones who built those damn coffins for the tribe. But those coffins weren't just coffins in being. To the place where the dead did not sleep, to the place where, if the balance between death and water was disturbed, they could return. The monk said that when a dead person was not buried properly, or when someone opened the coffin out of respect or made the body disappear, then the coffin would send its soul back, but not to bring it back to life. To take it, a living woman had to take its place. A few people who disappeared might have been the same people who were chosen for balance. The island was now almost empty. Many left the island with their fishing boats. Those who stayed had nowhere to go. Some, of course, did not believe this story. But it all ends when the third coffin is found. In the middle of the harbor, right in front of everyone in the middle of the day. This one didn't even have a chain. It was as if he had decided to open it just like that. As people stared at it in horror, the door slowly opened. There was no body inside. It was a mirror. An old cracked mirror. When you looked at it, you didn't see your own reflection. You saw someone else. Everyone ran away. The coffin seemed to have become light. It started to move backwards on the water, as if its work was finished. From that day on, no other coffins returned. But at night, when the sea fog thickens, you can still hear the sound of the chain. And whenever someone wants to return to Bechiu Island, the old fishermen say a repeated phrase. The coffins are still rolling. They are just quiet for now. Now that the coffins have disappeared and everything on the island has become quiet again, it's time to look at it from the outside. What is the truth? First of all, the entire story comes from stormy nights and the old fears of people who always reckoned with the sea. Throughout history, the sea has been both a source of life and a source of fear. Many maritime stories, from ghost ships to the dead returning from the sea, were created to respond to this fear. From a scientific perspective, several things are clear. First, the phenomenon of floating objects. At sea, objects such as sunken boats, lost coffins, or the carcasses of large animals can float in the water for weeks or months, and waves cause them to wash ashore. This leads to the formation of repetitive myths. Second, visual errors and the psychological effects of fog and darkness. Atmospheric conditions such as thick fog, moonlight in a cloudy sky, and reflections from water can cause vision problems in the dark of night. When people hear scary stories in advance, their brains subconsciously create images like a wet man or a moving coffin. Third, the myth-making of the community. When a rumor spreads in a small community, such as a remote island, people's minds become engrossed in the story as a group, even if there is no objective evidence. And ultimately, the lack of historical or geographical evidence. There is no reliable document about Bechiu Island and the floating coffin ceremony in reliable maritime and historical sources from this area indicates that this story is probably common among the locals and may be a myth, not reality. The story of the floating coffins of Bechiu Island is more of a documentary for the people of this region than for the world. A kind of legendary narrative full of scary and mysterious elements from the cultures of the Sahel people. This story is a reflection of the human need to explain the unknowns of the sea, death, and the power of nature. There is no scientific evidence that such an event actually occurred, and natural phenomena and mass psychology provide a convincing explanation for similar reports. Goodbye to another unknown factor.